Oh,
Okay, so this is part three with the generational planet Scorpio. Obviously the point of this series is to kind of look into what role Scorpio kind of has in all of us, because you can see it. Everything about life right now is about life and death. Whether you believe a certain story or the alternative story, everything is about, making decisions based on what we can trust, based on what we believe, that either allow us to live or die. So we just got through talking with Neptune in Scorpio, and now we are going into Uranus, because Uranus was the next planet that entered into Scorpio. Was it in the 70s?
yep, 1979 to 1986.
Okay, so that would actually include me in that. Or I think actually, yeah, I think probably most of us here, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that does include you. Yep, Uranus, it definitely includes you.
So it's Uranus, though. Obviously, we're talking about the planet of shocking revelations. We're talking about big changes. We're talking about electrified thinking. And so this is an interesting energy for Scorpio, isn't it?
Absolutely. During this period, during this timeline period, it's very interesting. Just gonna recap very quickly what Uranus is. And like you said, yes, it's awakening, it's rebellion, revolution, it's big mass changes, it's machinery, lightning, electricity. Whenever I think about the electricity part, I always think about Zeus throwing lightning bolts down.
But ironic, quick irony on that one. You think of Zeus, but it's actually Jupiter.
Oh my God, yes.
Right? Which is the sun.
Totally. Inventions, airplanes, believe it or not.
Grandson, my bad. Grandson.
It's all right. Airplanes and computers. Computers is Uranus too. Social uprising, earthquakes, astrology, believe it or not, is Uranus, but I also call this Uranus the planet of divine intervention. There's things that can happen suddenly and unexpectedly where your butt could be saved in like the 11th hour, and it's Uranus is also about, radical and very unexpected changes. It's also about eclectic, odd, unusual, interest, ingenuous, odd, unusual, scientists, scientists, a lot of them are, different. You know what I mean? Or it could also, be nervousness, right? Because it can affect your nervous system. So those are some of the things and words that describe what Uranus is and what it means with Uranus and Scorpio. So it's all of those things. And when you think back to that time, there always has to be, some kind of like common theme, right? When you have Uranus in a Scorpio, and for those of you, if you don't remember what Scorpio is, go back to the previous video, actually the first video, because this is the third one. And that will give you a lot more insight as to what Uranus and Scorpio is all about. So being that Uranus is like the great awakener, it's like a very powerful planet. It's also about wanting to break away, be free, and in the sign of Scorpio, it could create like a very it could create an aggressive personality. It could create also on another spectrum kind of like a magnetic personality. You think about like static, right? Electricity gives off that static kind of energy. So some people may appear or seem very captivating, you're not sure why, but then sometimes you get to know them and it's like, you're trying to figure out what is it that's captivating you about these people, and Scorpio is a very, very deep sign. It's an emotional sign, right? But Uranus, not that emotional. Uranus is very unemotional. It's more like matter of fact. It's more like it is, I would have to say, it's a cold planet. You know what I mean? It doesn't it's not gentle or kind. It's just like standoffish, so sometimes you could find that these people during that time, when you look back, to 79 and 86, I mean, what era was that? Wasn't that like Reagan? And
that was the start of Reagan. Some of the things I was thinking about was like the movies that started coming around that time. Star Wars 1979, right? Was kind of like
Oh
one of
my
the
God,
big.
that's right. Star Wars. And then what's his name? Flash. Flash.
Yeah,
Oh,
Flash.
Flash Gordon.
Yeah, Flash Gordon.
Yes, Flash
Yeah,
Gordon.
yeah. But you had a lot of
He could
that
save
came
every
out.
one of us.
That was kind of, but that was also a time where I think was that the start of the machismo craze? I think,
Oh my
right?
Yes,
God, I
because
don't know.
That
Is that
was
that had to be
Hercules
like
in New
80,
York.
80 or
that
70,
was
something like that.
that because because obviously like I'm thinking of Arnold Rocky. Rocky was 1979 too, right? And
Yeah,
that was a
Rocky
bit of
was
a,
some
of a shift a bit. But Uranus
Conan the
though,
Warrior. Remember
but it was
Conan the
but it
Barbarian? Yeah.
right
Yep.
Conan was there too, and we're talking about like Uranus and Scorpio because this is an interesting one because the Neptune and Scorpio was a very obvious message for, because obviously I was thinking about even myself Uranus and Scorpio, different ways of feeling about things, right? Different ways of of looking into sexuality or matters of the occult and the abyss, transformation. But again, Scorpio as a theme is always a theme of the
That's
extreme.
when they started having all those strange movies.
Yes, but you know what
Yes.
came to mind? You know what else just came to mind? During that time, we were, there was the Cold War, and Scorpio is also war and conflict and fighting, and
Sure.
Uranus is cold, and it's like very standoffish. So can you imagine? They called the war at that time the Cold War. I mean, how in sync is that?
They brought it out. Is that you're right? You're right.
Isn't that wild?
But it's interesting because again, I like to focus a bit on the sign of Scorpio and its influence. Scorpio is, as we were getting towards on the last time, you really don't see that key principal aspect of transformation until the pressure is applied, right?
Oh, 100%.
So that's again, I look at my life and my biggest moments of transformation always came when the pressure was greatest, right? And I had to make a choice about what I wanted to be given a certain situation. And it's always and because that sign of Scorpio is always about truth. Something has to be true given a certain set of circumstances, and I'm going to force something to have to change in order for everything to be in line, right? So how do you think Uranus works with that energy, right? That's the question. Uranus being, you say, all right, he's cold about it, but he's also electrifying. He's different. He's on his axis. And I'm just throwing this out there because I haven't thought about this terribly deeply. This is why I want to have this discussion. What does Uranus do when the pressure is applied and you have that desire for scorpionic change? What occurs? How does Uranus handle that?
Well, something you said very interesting is when the pressure is on. And with Uranus energy, it's like it's when you're against all odds, you know what I mean? Like to overcome like some crazy either battle or obstacle or challenge, this is when you have to fight. So I want to say that Uranus and Scorpio energy people, yeah, there's a lot of fighting in there, but there's also a lot of innovative, like unique ways of trying to solve issues. So what I could say about these energies is these people will always try to find non-traditional ways of solving their problems, getting over their challenges, things that people normally wouldn't think about. You know what I mean? For instance, and I'm just throwing this really stupid idea out there, but someone wants to build a house and they want to use bricks, right? But they don't have the money to buy bricks, but they need to have the home within like a certain amount of time. But what they do have for free, and it's resourceful, is like all these rocks and pebbles on the land because they happen to live on a mountain. And then instead of having to think, well, I need to get this kind of job and find out, find a certain, country that will make these certain bricks. They're like, no, you know what? I'm just going to have to use this and fill it up with cement and make my walls like that. you know, and use what I have resourcefully next to me, because eighth house is also other resources, and that could be the ones that are around you, you know. So it's about coming up with like brilliant ideas to help you like persevere through through a challenge, you know what I mean? But it will make you definitely determined as F, you know, to get something done. Because at the same time, believe it or not, because Uranus is eccentric, I mean, think about everyone that's a scientist, right? They have massive egos, these people, massive egos. Yeah, you guys do. You have these big egos. So it's like, unless you're thinking of, and I'm not trying to alienate you in any way, shape, or form, but Uranus is like lightning bolts. So you constantly get ideas, right? But it's like not a great idea unless it comes from you. So I know people born during this time where if you introduce ideas to them, it may not be suitable. But once they think of something, or they think an alternative thing, it's like, oh my God, this is genius. Because Uranus is also geniusness. Geniusness, eccentricity, you know. But also I do find, to be, believe it or not, people with Uranus in Scorpio, they do get flashes of insight, you know, into like deep things, or they could run into some kind of information that could like absolutely transform the way they think and feel about, you know, people in the world around them, you know, because it is opposing the second house.
Right. And
The
again,
natural zodiac.
Do we know anyone who has Uranus in Scorpio?
well, I
Can we
mean,
look at maybe a leader or a politician or anyone?
yeah, because
Yeah,
that
I
would have
mean-
been that would have been good for us to think about beforehand. I was actually in the midst of this conversation. I'm just I keep thinking about the YouTubers that are getting massive popularity, and they're just and they're just like outdoorsmen, right? And they're just building weird houses out in the woods or something, you know. And they're taking like scrap metal and then putting like saran wrap around it, and then creating their own little insulation, and then finding a little stove. But a lot of those people are in their mid to late 30s, right?
Well, let me give you, you know what I just thought about? Mark Zuckerberg. He has his Uranus in Scorpio, right?
Oh,
So he's a perfect example, because I did a chart reading on him not too long ago about metaverse and how
And of
it's
course,
transforming from
it
Facebook to
becomes
yeah.
right.
So listen to this. So what was the conundrum he was in? He was in a conundrum because of deep, dark secrets, right? What they were doing on the inside of Facebook that he doesn't want to come to terms with. So his way of transforming and ditching the situation was coming up with a genius plan. But his genius plan was to create what? What has to do with computers and electricity? Social media. So he decided to rename his social media to transform his what? His identity. You know,
And he's also been
and so
he's also been working with that. The VR is apparently a big thing with that whole platform, isn't it?
yes,
Which is
Well,
a
he
brand
bought
new, which is a
Oculus.
brand new technology, you know, that he has through Oculus. Yep. Like
Yep.
new.
So
He
there you
bought
go. That's
Oculus and he's
technology.
ready to go. It was just
Yep.
a matter of time, because once he bought Oculus, he was saying that, you know, AI and virtual reality is something that he's going to be working on. So I guess he's been working on this for quite a while.
So
Totally.
it's an interesting concept. So now, again, there's a death component with Scorpio. So what?
Yeah, the death
So
component is
to me, it's just sort of, if you're not able to come up with that idea and act on that, especially do it in an individualistic way. So I look at everything I've done in my life, or even the most successful people that I know from my age group, which is this age group, they've all had to do something different to stay afloat. That's the one thing I think I get from this. You have to be different, think different, you know, do things a bit differently. Otherwise, you get swallowed up. Very interesting. So, all right, we got to swap on over to the next one here. So 1 second.